And we're going to just start with the basic letter page. Now you can see on mine right here, I have these panels are kind of like stacked on top of each other. It's a bit of a mess. And in InDesign, you have lock areas dock areas that you can dock panels to. So every panel is almost always a group of tabs, but you can pull these tabs off, and you can also bring tabs in and create a new group panel as well. Now, the ideal solution is that you have your own InDesign and then you save your own, what do we call this? Profile. And the profile keeps track of things like your default typefaces, your panel locations, all of those things can be set into a profile. But I'm going to manually rearrange these panels real quick to reconnect us with how we do that.
That's what I'm looking for.
There it is.
Thanks. Did I bring this in here? Anna sent me a note asking for a letter of reference because she's going to apply to Clovis.
Oh,
Much more power to her. Of course, I'll write it, but
yeah. There's a media position open up there. I thought about applying it to it too.
you should. I don't want to lose either one of you.
I know. I don't want to leave.
Okay, good. See you later.
All right. Okay. So most of these panels, except for the one across the top, are collapsible. You can see these little double chevrons here. If I click that, it brings that panel out to a expanded position or expanded display. So like this toolbar here, normally while it's collapsed, it stacks everything into one column. But if I do the double chevron, we get two columns. Same with these guys over here. If I hit that little chevron there, it expands those panels. And then I can do this where I can grab a floating panel group and I can click and drag it into this area. And you'll see as I move around, you get these blue lines that show up. Can't do it up here. I can do it over here if I want. What about the bottom? Can I drop something on the bottom? I sure cannot. So we have three areas, or really right now, two areas, left and the right. This one up here is undockable as well, but we generally leave that one alone. So I can make a new column by just coming to the left of the existing column. If I let go there where that blue line goes all the way top and bottom, now I have two columns and I can collapse and expand them independently. I can also take this floating panel, bring it down to the bottom here, and see I've got that blue bar at the bottom. If I let go here, now this panel group is in the same column as this panel group here, and I can expand and collapse both of them. And you can see when they're collapsed, I can still access them by clicking on those guys. This is handy if you're working on a laptop screen and you need more real estate for your design. The shortcut, hitting the tab key, will basically hide everything and then hit tab to bring it all back again. I like to do that as opposed to keeping my panels hidden. I like having my panels out. Okay, let's say, like me, you're looking at this and you're saying, you know what? I want my pages, layers, and links to be over here in this second column, the one closest to the right edge. So I'm going to grab in this area right here. If I click on this and drag, I'm going to pull Links tab away from that group and it will become its own panel. And I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to move this whole panel. So I'm going to click this gray area, which unconnects the panel from that location. And then if I move it up here, see I get that blue line at the top there? Now watch. if I come down just a tiny little bit, there's a blue outline around that grouping. If I do that, it's going to add all those tabs to the stroke and color group, and that's not ideal. I want to move my mouse up just a little bit so I get that thick blue bar, and this means when I let go, those guys are going to end up at the top there. And sure enough, now my pages, layers, and links are at the top, and then I have a stroke and a color, and then swatches, and then text to image. Cool. Style packages, I don't really use them very much. So if I want to, I can pull them off, and then I can close that panel by hitting the X there, or I can right click and choose close. And that tab goes away. Now if I want to, I can come up to Window, Styles, Style Packs, and it brings it back into the place where it was previously. And then as a personal preference, I like to be able to see my paragraph and character styles at the same time. So rather than having these grouped together, I'm going to click on character styles. I'm going to pull it down to the bottom here. And now my my paragraph styles and my character styles are stacked on top of each other. I also want to do the same thing with swatches. I'm going to bring my swatches down to the bottom of this column, and then I'm going to get rid of text to image. There we go. Layers are something that I use more often than pages. So I do use pages, but I don't want pages to be hidden. I don't want layers to be hidden. So I'm going to grab layers, and I'm going to pull this one down in between the pages links group and the stroke color group. Right there, I let go. Now I've got layers as its own panel. It's not grouped with anything. It's just always going to be available. And then pages will be here as well. And I can hover over the space that's kind of the junction between those two groupings. And if I get this double arrowhead, I can click and slide and drag that down if I need more real estate for pages and less for layers. Same is true for this guy here. Let's see, I got a bunch of paragraph styles. I can slide the height of these so that I end up with more room for paragraph styles and less for character styles. Okay, in Pages, by default, yes, question?
I'm having a hard time putting my character styles beneath my.
Keep going down all the way to the bottom of, so you get the blue bar that goes across the column. Oh, so this has to be expanded in order to move them. Yeah, so yeah, so if you are rearranging these, if you have a floating panel and then a collapsed panel, you have to have, everything has to be expanded in order to move that floating panel around. When they're collapsed, you can rearrange these as well. Like if you want, swatches to be above paragraphs, you can also put all of the paragraph stuff into swatches if you want, but you definitely want to be careful about that. Okay. So our pages, when we see this line to the left of our page, that means that facing pages is enabled, and that's showing the binding or the spine of our document. Facing pages are like a booklet or a magazine. So if I add more pages by hitting this plus sign, you'll see it shows the binding there across this 2 pages side by side are considered a spread. Now, we can have parent pages. Parent pages contain content that is going to exist and be repeated on any page where that parent is applied. Right now we have a 2-up parent or a spread, and that means that the left page is going to be different or can be different than the right facing page. And that also means that if I double click on this guy here, and I'll just create an object on the right hand side, because this page 1 is to the right of the binding, that parent element shows up on that page. Same with this spread here, it only shows up on the right half of the spread. And here on page 4, which only shows the left half of a spread, it doesn't show up at all. So if you want to go without facing pages, and you started off with facing pages, you'll need to remove one of these parents, or just make sure that you're keeping track of what has what. So I'm going to remove the facing pages. So layout, margins and columns. Nope, sorry. File, document setup. Here we go. So under document setup, I can uncheck facing pages. Once I click OK, now all the pages go to single file, and then I'm going to get rid of that left facing parent page. There we go. And now these have a letter A on them, so everything that's on the A parent is going to get applied to these guys. Now let's say page 1 is my cover and I don't want this repeating element, so I can click and drag the none to page 1, and then that element, a repeating element, goes away. All right, if you are following along, I'm going to save this GRC30 underscore 250421 underscore LECT underscore last name, first initial. If you were going to turn something in, probably should save it. All right, each page has a margin and a bleed. Margin is what's considered the safe area. The bleed is outside of the bounds of the page. So for this shape right here, let's make a new shape. Let's do that on page 1. I'm going to make a new shape, and I'm going to give this a fill color. So pushing something up to the margin means that there's going to be a white space around the whole edge of this page. The white space allows us to keep focus and also to avoid trim errors. So if we had, let's say, a paragraph of text, if we push this all the way to the edge there, and as they're trimming the page, they were off by even 1/8 of an inch or a couple of millimeters, all of those letters would get chopped off. So that's why we use the margin. This is considered a safe zone or live area. So the margins are set in a couple different places. You can set them in under File, Document Setup. There's the margins there. Layout, margins and columns will also allow you to set margins. Now the bleed is anything that bleeds off of the page. So let's say this is an image of something, and we want to make sure that we don't end up with a real tiny white space. We want this to be at the true physical edge of the page. So the same cutting error could possibly transpire with this image or this color box. If I cut too wide, I'm going to have a very, very tiny What is happening here? I will have a very, very tiny white space along the edge, and that is not ideal. So we want to use what's called a bleed. Now we can set up the bleed in document setup. Right now the bleed is 0, but let's say we go to 0.125. That's pretty typical. That's 1/8 of an inch. Click OK. Now we see this red line around the outside of our page. That means that we will push our content that we want bled off the page to that line there. And now we've got 1/8 of an inch error margin. If somebody cuts this thing a little bit too wide or too narrow, we're good, right? We have excess to be cut off there. And then to see what it looks like with the bleed engaged, the shortcut key is W, and it shows what that will look like printed out. All right, let's talk about guides and grid. So,
Sorry, what is
yes,
it? Bleed up?
the bleed is under document setup.
No, I mean like how much?
Oh, minus 0.125, so 1/8 of an inch. If you were not good at fractions in school, using InDesign, you will eventually get good at fractions or fractional measurements of stuff. All right, now because this computer kind of remembers me, not always, but kind of, I've got the rulers engaged. Now, if I hit the R key, oops, nope, that's not it. Oh, that's rotate. Why is my, oh my gosh, my brain forgot the shortcut for rulers. There we go. Thanks, Sambria. Command R. Yay. That's what, when you get to be my age, that starts happening. Like, you just forget things. It's not even a brain fart, because with a brain fart, like, you walk away from it and then you get fresh air and you can remember. I just completely, like, I could stare at it for 5 minutes and not remember. That's fun. Should probably see somebody about that. Okay, so Command R is the toggle to turn the rulers on and off. The rulers are kind of a guide for us to let us know dimensionally where things are located and how big they are. Excuse me. Also, with the rulers enabled, you can do two things. You can right-click in the upper left-hand corner of the ruler, and you can change the measurement thingy. So right now mine's set to inches, but if you are in Canada, you could go to millimeters or centimeters. If you are designing for the web, you could switch to pixels, which is the same thing as points. If you're doing typography, you could do picas, which measures in picas and points. Well, we're not going to do that. And then you've got Ciceros and agates and inches decimal. Who knows what that is? All right. But we're going to leave it at inches. But if for whatever reason you need to switch it, tomorrow I'm doing my workshop on Blender. Anybody use Blender? Okay. Blender is a 3D design program, and it's really cool for folks who want to create animations or some sort of three-dimensional illustration. It's not the best for creating things that you want to have machined or 3D printed. It's not an exacting program. And I gave an example of how different programs, different versions of programs measure things. And there was a very famous catastrophe, or not really catastrophe, but more of a snafu. When they were first building the Airbus airplane, there was one design firm, there was 3 different countries that had design firms that were building this. And one design firm was using the newer version of this particular modeling software, version 4, and the other country was using version 3. Version 4 did some kind of cool corrections for changes in millimeters to inches. Version 3 did not do that. Version 3 ended up being the master or the controller of everything. And so the folks that had designed the nose cone shipped the nose cones to the folks that were assembling the fuselages, and they didn't fit because one group was using a different set of measurements. The wiring harnesses were off by millimeters, but the tolerances in airplanes, like if you think about it, if you've got a panel that's 3 millimeters off and you start flying at 30,000 feet and you're going 460 miles an hour, those small imperfections can be devastating. So anyway, if you are using a measuring system, make sure it makes sense for your client or for whatever thing you are building. InDesign is great in that it is exact. So if you know something is going to be 400 millimeters wide, if you design it to be 400 millimeters wide, it will not mess around and change that somehow, whereas Blender sometimes does. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what another thing that the ruler does for us is allows us to create guides. So if we click on the ruler and drag out, we can create a guide on the page. And as we're dragging, if we hold down the shift key, it will snap to 1/8 inch increments. So if you want to get right to 4 inches, you can do that. Or let's say 2 1/8 inch, you can do that. But if you didn't do the shift and drag, or you accidentally let go, you can select the guide and delete it and drag another one. Or you can drag select the guide, and then up in the position frame field up here, you can enter an exact location for that guide. And so there's an X position only because this is a vertical guide. It doesn't move up and down. It is up and down. It's a line. And if we want a horizontal guide, we can click and drag from the top ruler. And again, we will only get the Y position field because there is no left or right. There's no X movement of a horizontal line because it is X. Okay. When the line is not selected, it changes to this cyan blue. When the lines are selected, they are changed to a darker blue. And then you can lock lines. Bless you. So if we go to, is it object? No. Guides and grids, lock guides. So option, command, semicolon. So if you select the guides, or you don't have to select the guides, just option, command, semicolon will lock the guides. And now I can't select them. I can't move them at all. And then option, command, shift, semicolon, I believe unlocks them. Nope. Oh, it's a toggle. Same, option, command, semicolon to unlock. Cool. Now, if I want to have a grid system where I have multiple measured same increment spacing of horizontal and vertical lines, or rows and columns, I can use the built-in tool under layout that is called the guide creator or create guides. And so from here, I can allow it to create guides and also columns if I want to. And I can select the gutters for these. Your gutter generally should be a multiple of your margin. So if your margin is a 1/2 inch, your gutter, whatever your gutter setting is, should divide into that. Or if your layout is type-based, the default that it comes up with, which is 0.1667, I believe is the same as 12 points. So if I go to layout, create guides, yeah, because our default typeface size is 12 points for the body copy. So this is how we can create rows and columns of guides. Now, if you think, hey, I don't remember ever doing it like that. Number one, you're wrong because we did do that. But number two, there is another way to create columns anyway, under margins and columns. Who knows why it's that way? I believe it's because columns are harder to move, and because of the nature of columns, if I have a lot of text to place in a column, InDesign recognizes that excess text. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Fill placeholder text. So if I roll this paragraph up, I get overset text. I click on that red plus. If I click here, it automatically creates a column of text based on this column. Now, if I do that on another page, like page 2 here, it's just going to go and fill in this whole space here. So that's one of the advantages of using the columns as columns and not using guides as columns. I generally will do a combination of both. I will let the guides creator create my rows and my columns creator create the columns. Okay, let's talk about color swatches. Color swatches, when you have something selected, like a shape has a stroke and a fill color. Hitting the X key toggles that over here in the lower left of the toolbar. Whichever one is forward, when I pick a color, whoa, that color gets applied to that stroke or fill. Consequently, if I do / key while either the fill or the stroke is in the foreground, it will remove the color from that.
Professor, to use that object that you have, the blue color on the outlining, can you go over that step one more time? You get that outline?
Yeah, so I just applied the color. I made sure that the stroke color was in the foreground here. And you can also see it up here in the swatches panel. So make sure that that's in the foreground. Yours will probably be black. And then I just click on a color. That gets applied to the stroke. And then in the stroke editor, there's a panel here, but then there's also a little mini panel at the top of the page here. And that can increase the weight of the stroke to make it thicker. Because at one point, it's really hard to see, but it is there. You can see it right there. It's very, very tiny. So our color swatches are shortcuts to colors. With nothing selected, if I double click on this blue color, and I'm going to uncheck name with color value so I can give it a name. I'm going to call this signature. This is our signature color, and it's going to be this. Notice that as I change that, that's no longer blue now. Now, if I use my color panel, I can actually do a CMYK. I'm not going to do that though, but so every time I click on a swatch, it's saying whatever color is defined in that swatch is getting connected to either the fill or the stroke on that shape. And if you edit the color in the swatches panel, wherever that swatch has been applied, the color will change. It will, for those of you in web, it will cascade. So right now I have this dark blue selected. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to double click on the dark blue and then change this color a little bit. There we go. And now that color is different. And I haven't applied the new color that I just edited. It's already applied. And because I edited the applied color, it's going to change wherever that color has been applied. That's how color swatches work. All right, let's talk about paragraph styles. This is the one that trips people up a lot. Save your work, by the way, Command S. All right, so generally I want to choose my text for the body copy. I almost always do the body copy first. And with my paragraph styles open, I click on the plus sign to create a new paragraph style, and then I select that paragraph style, and you don't notice it, but that paragraph style 1 now has been applied to this body copy text. And if I double click on it, I can change the title of the paragraph style to body copy. And I can change the font to, was it Myriad Variable Concept? Is that the one we went with? Do you guys have Myriad Variable Concept?
Yeah.
Okay, but you don't have Minion Variable Concept.
No.
Okay, so Myriad Variable Concept. This is one of those typefaces that has a metric buttload of different fonts in it. So you can use Myriad Variable Concept for the whole document if you wanted to. And my body copy, I want to choose the font regular. I want to leave it at 12 point. And I'm going to click OK. Now to create a second paragraph style, let's say for a headline, I want to make sure that nothing is selected. Because if I have this text selected and I go to create a new paragraph style, it's going to apply that new paragraph style to the text that's selected. And I don't want to do that. So whenever you're working with paragraph styles, make sure that when you create, that the only time you create when text is selected is that very first body copy. So now I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to call this title. This can also be H1, heading 1, the biggest one of all. And I want it to inherit the body copy style. So I'm going to say based on body copy. But under basic character formats, I'm going to change the font to black, which is the boldest of the bold. And I'm going to change the size to 48 points. And then OK. Now, nothing has changed because that text wasn't selected. So therefore, nothing was applied. So if I want to drag select here, and if I want to double click on my title, I can change the color of the type. character color. And you can't create a color on the fly at this point. You have to choose from the swatches. And that's by design because they want you to work with the swatches. So I'm going to choose that silvery color or brass color, sorry, copper. And so now everything that has the title, heading, paragraph style applied to it will also be this color. Now here's the fun thing. If I want to go into my swatches, double click, and let's say I want to edit this color. Make it a little more green. Notice that it's changed, not only just in the shape that had that fill color applied to it, but also my titles, which have that color in the paragraph style. So being able to cascade your styles is super, super helpful. With character styles, you can grab, a couple words out of your text, create a new character style, and let's call it highlight. And I'm going to use that same green character color. Okay, I'm not digging the green. I'm going to go back to that brassy color. There we go. And so now wherever I drag, select, and choose the highlight character style, those characters will be changed because that style is applied to those particular characters. So if you look here, I'm going to click in this text above where I applied it, and you'll see that in this text, none character styles are applied. And if I arrow down one line, still none. But if I go into this line that has that highlight style applied, you can see it shows now, thus, yes, indeed, these letters have highlight character style applied to them until the very end here when I get back into the black, and then it's none character styles. So the character styles, generally speaking, is what we want to use for short, non-paragraphy type formatting. Paragraph styles are for overall formatting, for the whole kit and caboodle. So character styles are mainly for providing highlight. You can also, if you want to, with nothing selected, you can edit that highlight style, and you can tell it to go bold, or yeah, let's do bold. So now that stands out a little bit more in our body copy. All right, I'm going to save that. All right, let's talk about shapes now. Our shape tool has rectangles, ellipse, and polygons. Any shape that you create can be used as an image frame. I can place an image inside of this frame, which means I can create funky shapes to be used as masks for images. I can also wrap text around shapes. So if I have a shape in the midst of all of this text here, so under Window, Text Wrap, by default, Text Wrap is not applied to an object. You never want to apply text wrap to a text group or text object. You only want to apply text wrap to the object that's going to interact with the text. So I'm going to click this here, wrap around object shape. And there we go. And now the shape of this thing will push the text out of the way. And if the shape of this thing is too close to the text, you can bump up that buffer area in the text wrap panel. So I did 3 points, and that really seems to offset it much better. Now, the tool directly above the shape tool is the rectangle frame tool. This creates a placeholder. And the difference between the rectangle and the rectangle frame tool is that the frame will have an X through it. But you know, this is going to receive some content here at some point. And so if I go out to the internets and I go to pixels.com, download an image. All right, and with my text frame selected, I'll do File, Place, find that image, and then I can drop it in. Now, it is zoomed in, hugely zoomed in. If I click on the image, oh, it's outside of the bounds of everything. You can see the actual image itself is gigantic. To get it more manageable, you can click one of these proportionate fit or proportionate fill. So our image still goes outside of the bounds of the frame, however, it's visible now. Now, if you want to make adjustments to the image inside of that frame, if you hover over and you get that circle, if you click on the circle, now the image inside of the frame is selected, and you can move it around inside of that frame if you want. You can also scale the image up or down. And then if you want to, you can use the direct selection tool and, oops. Grab a corner and you can tweak this out. Under the pen tool, you also have this convert anchor point. So if you want to, you can make this a curve. Groovy. So our pen tool allows us to create custom shapes. Clicking, 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 and then finally at the very end, clicking on that origination point will close the path, and now you have a shape. You can also use the direct selection tool to click on one of the points to edit the point. You can also, let me just roll this down here. As you're using the pen tool, if you click and drag, you you get these little Beziers, and you can actually create a rounded corner shape. And again, that can be used as an image frame. All right, that's the pen tool. All right, type tool. With the type tool, I click and drag a type area. I can type text in there. I can change the paragraph style if I want to. I can also right click and fill with placeholder text, which uses a bunch of lorem ipsum to fill in. If you need to rearrange or move the type area that you just created, you want to use the selection tool, and then you can grab your corners or your edges and rearrange stuff as you need to. The type tool is only for applying styles like paragraph or character styles. One shortcut, if you hold down the Option key while you are clicked into a text area, it changes to a hand. That allows you to move your page. So if you're working on a spread, you need to see that other page. Any tool you're working on, that functionality is available. If you hold down the Command key, you can actually select your text frame and move it or resize it. It basically temporarily engages the selection tool, and then when you let go of the Command key, it goes back to text tool. Question?
On page 2, when you edited that shape, how did you get like the handles and stuff?
So as you're creating with the pen tool, if you click and drag, it gives you those Bezier handles. If you just click, it gives you a corner.
So if you have a shape already, are you able to make it?
Absolutely, yes, good question. So if I long press on the pen tool, I can grab the Convert Direction Point tool. And this allows me to select a shape, and then if I click on that point, I can click and drag, and now it turns that corner into a Bezier. This is, I would imagine, what my foot would look like if I was a cartoon. So on the parent pages, in addition to creating things like shapes, we also have the ability to add special characters or indicators. For instance, we can do page numbers. So with the text tool, I would create a text area. Let's go back to body copy here. And I'm going to go to type, insert special character, markers, current page number. And that gives me a letter A. Now, letter A means I'm on the A parent. If I created a new parent page, drag to text area, and that new parent is called, let's say, B parent, and I went to type, insert special character, markers, current page number. That's going to give me a B. So keep in mind, just typing letter A or letter B into a text area is not going to give you a page number. That's just letting you that you are on that parent page and it's a special character. And so now wherever the B parent is applied, you'll see on the A parent, we've got where did I put the parent, the page number? Oh yeah, I'm going to put the page number down here in the black. Let's see, I'll make it. So I'll make the text white so it shows up. Line it up with the margin. All right, so now on my A parent, now I can see there's a page number. Page number 1 there. We go to page 2. Page 2 shows down at the bottom. Page 3, now I've got a 3 in the upper left-hand corner and a 4 in the upper left-hand corner. Because on my first 2 pages, I'm using an A parent. Second 2 pages, I'm using a B parent. Okay, cool. Save your work. All right, 2 more things. Table of contents and then exporting to PDF. So I'm going to create a new paragraph style with nothing selected. And I'm going to call this headings. And it's going to be based on body copy. I'm going to change the font style to semi-bold and the size to 24. And I'm going to use that paragraph style to add to each page a section title, just randomly. Yes, sir.
On the essential facets, for your options on the color, on the for your colors, Lester,
Yeah.
I lost that portion of it.
The colors.
I was reading, yeah, trying to get it back.
Okay, don't worry about it. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just make this right now. No worries. Section 3. Section 4. Now the reason we created a new paragraph style for this is it's kind of simulated how we would do sections in a booklet or a multi-page document. Because the title, generally there's only one thing that's the title. It's generally on page 1, even though I have 2 titles. I'm going to get rid of that. But we will have multiple section titles, and that should be headings as well. So with our table of contents creator, we can use it to identify, based on text that has a specific paragraph style applied to it, where that paragraph style is applied within the document, and it will give us a page number. So to do that, I need to use layout, table of contents. This is a generator built into InDesign. It is not dynamic. If we make changes to any of our sections, if we add or delete pages, we have to run the table of contents generator again. All right, the title, this is the title that's going to show up at the top of our table of contents. So I'm going to change this to table of contents. The style is the style that's going to be applied to that title. So if we wanted to, we could give it the title heading if we wanted to. Or you can see here now we have a TOC title that we can choose from. That, if we choose that, it will create that in our paragraph styles. Normally I like to create that on my own first, but what the heck, let's just do it this way. So once that's been decided, now we need to tell the table of contents generator what paragraph style to look for when it's creating these table of contents. And we're going to definitely choose headings. Not title heading 1, because that's only on page 1. So once that's selected, I'll click add, and it will now look for all the headings. Now the entry style, this is what in our table of contents, how that content's going to be styled. And we don't want to, if we do same style, whatever the heading style is going to get applied to the headings in the table of contents. We want to create a new heading style for the body text in the table of contents. So again, just like we did up at the top, we're going to click this drop down and choose TOC body text. This will allow us to do some fancy stuff with that text. Okay, one more thing that's vitally important. It's checked by default, but if it's not, you should check this right here. Create PDF bookmarks. That's very important because when we export this to a PDF file, we want these things to be clickable, and this is the first part of that to make sure that that happens. Okay, and then click OK. Yes. Okay. So now it loads up my text cursor and allows me to click and drag a text area, and there's my table of contents. I'm going to deselect that because I'm going to make some changes to the paragraph styles. So nothing is selected. I've got my selection tool engaged and I've clicked in the paste area. So nothing is selected. And I'm going to double click on my TOC title, first of all. And it's based on basic paragraph, and I'm going to change that to body copy. So it's based on body copy. As soon as I do that, as long as you have preview enabled, you can see that that title changes. And that's awesome. Now it automatically has made a bigger size for this. It's chosen regular. I'm going to click this drop down. I'm going to choose semi-bold, semi-extended. Okay. And I don't like, that's a little too big. I'm going to bring this down to 18. And then okay. Now, in normal circumstances, you wouldn't see section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4 corresponding with the page numbers. This would be applied to actual section titles, which are going to have different words and different line lengths as a result. Now, you can see because they are the same width here, every line has the same space from the title to the page number that it's located on, and it accomplishes that through a tab key. And we can hook into that tab in order to give us formatting options, allowing us to both left and right justify content on the same line. So again, with nothing selected, I'm going to double click on my TOC body text. And I'm going to base this on body copy again. My basic character formats, I'm going to bump this up 2 and go to 14. And then I'm going to select the tabs on the left-hand side here. It's the 5th one down, tabs. Now, by default, tabs are interjected every every half inch, every 5/10 of an inch. And the text is left justified at each tab stop. So I'm going to click OK. Let's all click OK real quick. I'll come in here and I'm just going to hit tab. So you can see that's every one of those tab clicks is a half an inch. All right. Selection tool, nothing selected, double click body text, back to tabs. Now you can see right here, this left justified tab is engaged. The navigation for this tab thing is super wonky. Just understand this is the left edge and this is the right edge of this text area right here, supposedly. And if I want to make a right justified tab, which means whenever I click tab, it's going to push that content to the right edge of this box, I'm going to click this right justified tab, and then I'm going to come down, I'm going to drag this, or click on, there we go, click right on that gray area. Now for whatever reason, this is not accurate. This doohickey is wonky. So I'm going to, and I've got mine set to millimeters. Oh, it doesn't matter anyway. So I'm just going to click and drag this until it gets kind of near to the right edge of that. And I only want one of these. If I have a second one in there, it will throw stuff off. And then finally, the fun thing that everyone loves is if you click into the leader form there, then hit a period or a dot, and then the tab key, it will connect these lines so people don't have to drag their eyeballs all the way across there. And then click OK. All right, now I'm going to mess this up. So I'm going to select this table of contents text area, and I'm going to change the width of it. I'm going to squeeze it up a little bit so that it matches with this rectangle above. Well, you'll notice now what's happened is that our text is wrapping because that right tab stop is too far over because we've shrunk the width of our text area. So what I need to do with nothing selected, make sure nothing is selected, I need to go back and edit this tab stop. And bring it in. There we go. Cool. All right. The very last step, after saving, of course, is to export this to a PDF. So I'm going to choose File, Export. PDF Interactive is generally the one you want to work with if you've got bookmarks, but it will work in print as well. And then click Save. Amber, why doesn't mine show?
Mine isn't showing.
Oh, because we did it when we created the table of contents. So if when you created the table of contents, you didn't click create bookmarks, you will see a field pop up in here that allows you to select bookmarks. That's what that's all about. So click export. That's fine. And there you go. And then you should be able to click on these to go to the different pages. All right, any questions so far? We're done with the lecture. Do I need to repeat anything for anyone? I know that was kind of a whirlwind. We went through basically what we've learned in this semester in about an hour and a half. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.